Hi, this is Alan Shimel for DevOps.com's DevOps TV here at Does 16, San Francisco. Happy to be joined by Ben Chan and Susanna Brown of American Airlines.
Thank you,
Thank
Alan.
you.
This
Like
is
I
great.
just crossed the hurdle on that one. So guys, you literally just came off of the main stage about a half hour ago and talked a little bit about an interesting transformation or an interesting DevOps journey, because it was during a time of merger, right?
Mm-hmm.
American Airlines, of course, merged with US Air to form the new American Airlines, or I guess that's what they call it. And at the same time, you know, because you need to keep enough balls in the air, I guess, doing a DevOps transformation around that, or at, you know, with as part
Yeah, the
of it.
reality was that we didn't go into the work thinking, oh, this is going to be a DevOps transformation. It was really almost like a side benefit of all the work that we had done.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we started, merger happened in 2013, and then 2014, we were just all about building trust. So merger was kind of that catalyst to force us to make friends with everybody.
Really?
Right, and there was a lot of work, so we had to start getting everyone together. And
Sounds
start
like a
making
movie,
things
The
happen.
Accidental Transformation.
Yeah.
But that was the tourist.
Accidental DevOps,
Right.
Alan. That's what it is.
That's right.
So, at what point, though, did you or your team say, you know what, this is like a DevOps kind of thing, or what we're talking about here, or what's needed here is sort of a DevOps type of pattern?
Well, for me, it started, I went to one of Jane's first book releases. I want to say it was late 2013, early 2014, when he was launching the Phoenix Project.
Mm-hmm.
And what he said really resonated. The concept of, you just can't keep on throwing bodies at it, or kind of have this culture where, development is very antagonistic against ops and vice versa. And really, as we started merger, the whole concept of making friends and making sure that we could work together resonated along with that, with DevOps. And it's been a great journey for us. But I personally think we're way at the beginning. We're like where Target was maybe in 2012 in terms of our maturity on the DevOps front. Yeah.
Interesting. Ben, what about you?
For me, I think it started with infrastructure. We were always troubleshooting things with infrastructure, and we started really looking at how can we automate and get some consistent state, and then talked to Susanna, and she said, hey, we're doing all this great stuff. By the way, Gene Kim's got this book. You should read it. And then I took it and got a bunch of copies for my team. We all started reading, started a book club, and started trying to move faster.
Which we had to do because we had these major projects that we had to deliver. So we had
Sure.
to work smarter. That was the reality. Either that or we were going to drown in a mountain of work.
Well,
DevOps
we would
by
drown in a
necessity.
mountain of
Yeah.
work. We would try to get a breath every now and again. We would try to deliver on time, and then everything would break, and we'd have to fix it, right?
Yep,
And
stay
so
up
for
late.
us, it was very much,
Survival.
yes. Yeah, and I needed automation so that I could guarantee somewhat that I might not have to break as many things on the back end.
So we were talking off camera before we started, and I had mentioned that Dan Glass, CISO at American Airlines, had presented at the Rugged DevOps event we did at RSA conference last year.
Yeah.
And one of the things in after Dan spoke, and I had a chance to speak to people in the audience, was the notion of when you take DevOps principles, where we're kind of constantly flux, if you will, right, and putting new stuff out there, short feedback loops, fixing it, iterating, reiterating. We're not talking about widgets. We're talking about people on planes. And it's life or death. Let's face it, right? Where there's the ultimate mission critical.
Yeah.
Right.
How does that put pressure on what you're doing around your DevOps transformation, that the margin of errors, or do you design it in such a way that before anything gets out to anything that front line, it's been tested to where there's a high degree of confidence?
Do you want to speak a little bit to it? Because I think that actually goes to why we're not necessarily adopting open source at the beginning here, and instead allowing other groups to explore it. So there's there's 4 major areas within American, and from a technology perspective. And ours, because our systems are so critical for flight, we tend to be a little more risk averse in terms of probably the open source stack compared to other groups.
Yeah.
So I think we've focused more on VMware and what we're doing with Puppet as a way to accelerate our delivery. But we're keeping an eye definitely on what's happening out there, but we're definitely more risk averse because our systems are vital and critical.
There's a balance there, right? Because I think while we need to be risk averse because our systems are vital and critical, obviously we're at DevOps here and we're trying new things and we're trying to release. And sometimes people will say, one of the things that you want to do is you want to stay back a release or a version or two so that you can make sure that it's baked in and you're not going to have issues with your vital critical systems. But the flip side of that is if I don't stay currently patched, I could have problems because the software vendors are getting input from tens of thousands of customers to fix their software and make it hardened, right? So we do have DR in place where we can safely migrate applications to one DR site, verify that we're going to be okay, and then move back. So we can embrace some of the changes of staying at the forefront as long as we are careful in how we do that and how we plan that.
Great. Let me return to the issue of all this going on with the background of a huge merger happening.
Yeah.
In some ways, I guess it's a good thing because it creates a pseudo greenfield, if that's a word, right? Where hey, you were combining this anyway, so this is as good a time as any to kind of wipe the slate clean and start with a nice fresh. But you really don't, because you have 2 large organizations with a long history of culture and tools. So, what we're really doing is we're taking 2 brownfields, if you will, combining them and trying to make 2 brownfields green. And I remember from my coloring days, when you do brown and brown, it doesn't necessarily turn, it stays brown. How was that?
Well, we spoke a little bit about it in the presentation today, this concept that we had to focus on culture. And a lot of that was playing together, having fun together, making sure that the teams were meshing and sharing information as soon as we had it. I think transparency in decision making is so critical to gain acceptance from the team. So we leveraged our internet site. It's based on Jive, and we use that as a method of distributing data. And trying to get people to follow a similar development process. So it wasn't just infrastructure, but also pushing along kind of other areas to embrace DevOps and embrace that speed of delivery. But yeah, we were, as we said earlier, kind of forced into it, and I think it's been a great thing.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Susanna, you've been at DevOps Enterprise Summit before?
This is my first time.
Oh, really?
Yes, we've been heads down.
Yes.
Heads down with integration, Alan. I mean, we have
all
had no
work and
time.
no play.
Exactly.
Makes Susanna and Ben dull people.
So we finally finished that big project at the beginning of October, and we're up for a little bit of a breather before the next one starts.
Fantastic. Well, this is my 3rd one, and
Where are your pins?
I'm not a pin kind of guy. I'm lucky I'm wearing a good shirt today. It's not a good thing, but what I enjoy about it though is the camaraderie of hearing people like yourselves sharing your story with other people who have their own stories. And it's kind of like that new TV show, This Is Us or something is this show that's on. How they all fit in together, right? They look like all different stories, but there's common threads that run through all of our stories.
Right, and I was mentioning earlier that, I think from a journey perspective, we're probably where Target was in 2012. So I reached out to Heather, speaking of, contacting with people and asked her about what are they doing with Dojo, how are they educating people on DevOps, because I think that's going to be one of the next big steps in the journey for American is educating the enterprise as a whole about DevOps, because we have some really strong pockets, it's just we're not working together.
Yes, that was the theme I went I did DevOps Enterprise London this summer, and we did a bunch of videos, and my theme that I always like to try to pick a theme of what I see
Yeah,
at a
what
show.
you're hearing.
Yeah.
And it was pockets of DevOps coming together,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
right? For a lot of organizations had these bubbles, if you will, kind of like bubbles, right? And when bubbles join, you make bigger bubbles, and that's kind of what we saw there. When you talk about training, have you given any thought to formalized DevOps training or stuff like that?
Well, we have a really strong Agile group that does a lot of
Scrum.
Agile training
Yes.
and
Agile at American.
Agile at American. And
Oh,
I would
okay.
think we follow probably a similar pattern
path
to
for
that, right?
That'd be great.
Yeah.
But we'd like to hear more.
We'd hope to
Yeah.
be here again next year. We'll see what
Okay.
happens.
That's
Well,
right.
you can always reach out to us at devops.com. We're writing about this stuff year round. So we'd love
Okay.
to hear more always.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing your story at DevOps Enterprise Summit this year. Thank you for being on DevOps TV.
Alan,
Sure.
thanks for having us.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Susanna. Pleasure.
Thanks.
Ben, thank you very much.
Wonderful.
Keep up the great work. Keep us posted. This is Alan Shimel for DevOps.com's DevOps TV.